Vice President-elect Kashim Shettima says the incoming administration is determined to unite the nation by giving every region a fair share of political office. While speaking to members-elect of the joint task of the 10th Assembly, Shettima also said the choice of Akpabio for the Senate President will dispel every rumor or fear of Islamizing Nigeria that has been touted by some people. He said the focus is the stabilization of the country, and the goal and every other consideration has to be relegated to the background to make way for a Senate President from the South. Shettima said the most corrupt and incompetent Southerner is more qualified to be President of the Senate than the smartest and the most competent Northerner.
Well, let's explore this issue further as we're now being joined in the studio by Dr. Sam Amadi, Executive Chairman, Center for Public Policy and Research, and of course he is a Rice News analyst. Dr. Amadi, thank you so much for joining us tonight on the program. And listening to the Vice President-elect of the APC says, you know what, the incoming administration intends to unite the nation and ensure fair distribution of key positions. Well, the question is, are you optimistic that this incoming administration intends to do that, especially looking at the first set of, key positions that have been zoned so far?
Well, first we'll start with what looks like hypocrisy. I mean, he says the dumbest, the most corrupt Southerner is better than the smartest Northerner for the office. What could make the case that maybe the most corrupt Christian Northerner was more suited for the VP position than the smartest non-Christian Northerner? What's the point? The idea of balancing is a holistic idea. It's a whole of government approach. If you look at the chapter 2 of the Constitution, it talks about justice being the heart of Nigerian democracy. And secondly, the federal character principle talks about the whole government. So you're going to start balancing from A to Z. So the executive, the legislature. Now let's look how it works. And it's right. If you have a president, vice who are from the same faith, definitely, that's the point you're trying to make. You just have to get the Christians out. Now, the crisis that PPC faces now is, ordinarily, if you have a president who is a Christian, a Southerner, you should have a Senate president from the North, because the South has taken the major job, okay? The North takes the less, which is the vice president's sort. So the Senate should go to actually the North and the Speaker to the South, if you're looking at that parity. And that's the case of some of the Northern arguments making. But because you have a Muslim president vice, it puts in an odd position to have a Northern Senate president, because you're most likely going to have, if it's not West, Northeast, the most potential persons will likely be a Muslim. Now, so it makes it inevitable that it should take the Senate seat to Southeast or South-South. Again, the Southeast is making a good pitch in terms of saying, look, I just read the book about Nigeria in the 1962, and it says there used to be 3 major ethnic groups plus other ethnic groups. What that means, therefore, is the Southeast people could fancy themselves and say, look, we're not the president, we're not the vice, we're not going to be the speaker, we're not going to be the Senate president, we'll only be the deputy Senate president. So that is, a let-off. That's more like they got nothing to this game. And so then the North Central is also springing up and say, look, we just have to have something. We're missing in this game totally, okay? You have a Southwest president, Northeast vice president, a maybe Southeast deputy speaker, maybe a South, for what they're saying, maybe a South-South Senate president. Obviously going to have a Northeast, North Central.
This is despite giving the APC the most states.
Most states. So that this question around, is it a reflection of votes or a reflection of justice? I like what Ndome said a few days ago. Elections are over. Forming government is not about who gave votes. That's very important. You see, because, why is it important? It's important because the nation has to be governed. And Nigeria is a weak state now. Look at the level of insurgents, not just Boko Haram. Look at the IPOB. Look at the Yoruba Nation. Look at the militant Creek. So Nigeria is a moment of new founding, just like 1914, after the war, with no victor, no vanquish. We're now in a new moment of founding after Buhari's 8 years that kind of divided us more, whether by default or by intention. So what at the minimum would be that statesmanship and statecraft. You just have to focus on governing, not about votes now. The triumphalism of we get the vote, we didn't get the vote. 95 minus 7%, all kinds of algorithm that didn't work, that created more crisis, is what we're playing at now. So I would argue 3 key things. Let's not forget the chief of staff. Let's not forget the secretary of government. So people are saying, oh, look, the biggest jobs on this table is the president, the vice president, the chief of staff, in terms of optics, gravitas, and capacity to change things.
Well, we have seen, if you talk about the chief of staff, we have seen in the time past, especially since the return to democracy in Nigeria, the presidents usually would go with someone from the same geopolitical zone.
And that complicates. So the point I'm making, it further adds to the crisis. So as we have the president who is a Muslim, vice president who is a Muslim, back to the argument of Shetima, and the chief of staff presumably a Muslim, secretary of government a Muslim, then you're going to have big optics problem. And a country where we have weaponized religion. And that's why you see, and this is the point, not just about theory. If you look at political science literature across the world,
Dr. Sam,
people are talking about balancing and inclusion. It's actually not just about helping people. It's actually strategy for creating social stability. So this is a case of let's help them, dash them, position. It's actually how you can survive. Yeah, you have to make social justice the criterion of governance.
Okay, social justice being the criterion of governance. We're going to ask for some actuality, but before then, talk to us about uniting the nation. If all this is about national integration, all right, is federal character really working for us? Because remember the other time we spoke about the desirability and of course the utility.
Utility of it, yeah.
So you spoke at length about the utility, but then the desirability. Yeah. Okay, so is it really working for us? Is it what each region really wants?
Like I said, you see, you have to solve, politics is actually about people's history at a particular time. In 1960, after we set away chased away the British colonialists, we had so much hope about building this great city on the sun, great state, Nigeria. People went to work. Now, we factored our regional differences. We have regionalism. And then at a point, we had some centralization and we had a crisis. So is it desirable? What we need actually, 3 things we need. We need economic growth badly, and that comes from making decisions that are economic, what we call economizing. So for example, where do we site power plants? We will site it to where there's gas. We have to manage our economy to raise productivity across the board. The second thing we need, and they have to go together, we need to stabilize our politics and social environment so that the work of economic growth can happen. So you need to, and that's what Tinubu and Shetima are saying, for what they're saying. They said they want to keep Nigeria together. And that's very important. So to keep Nigeria together, there are certain dissonances you avoid. One is triumphalism, the idea of who gave us the vote. You start separating yourselves. You start creating a sense of entitlement. So I feel I deserve more than you do. Integration is actually creating a sense in which people come to the same platform and see themselves as belonging to one country and sharing. But to get there, you have to give faith to everybody. So if, for example, you see in APC, for example, not even outside the APC as a party, members themselves feel that they're not being carried along. So if somebody from the Southeast, the whole APC members in the Southeast feel that, senators feel that they're not getting what they deserve, you've already started sowing a seed that could destabilize the politics, because people who want to opportunist will tie into that and drive that wedge between government and the people. Okay. So basically, you have to start the one delivering equity to everybody. It's difficult to do because everybody wants a big pie, a big part of the pie.
But while we're dividing all of these positions, you know, the question about the fact that you've talked about religion and even geopolitical zones and ethnicity producing, but where's the place of competence in all of that? This is a big question. But you know what? Let's get the Vice President-elect of the All Progressives Congress. Let's get his voice with regards to exactly what he's saying as it concerns a fair distribution of certain key offices in the country.
Given the current circumstances we found ourselves in, the stability of the nation is much more important than all other considerations. The most incompetent, the most corrupt Southern Christian is better than the most puritanical and competent Northern Muslim to be the President of the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. All other considerations have to be relegated to the background. Because we are talking of the stability of the nation.
Is the priority of the incoming administration, Dr. Amadi?
I agree. Stability. But what I'm saying, all regimes that talk about, you know, go on and says, go on with one Nigeria. That's the acronym. People talk about to keep Nigeria together. It's a task that was a sing song. But interestingly, Nigeria has not been more united than they were in 1962. Question was asked yourself, why are we not getting more united?
That's
part of the rhetoric. You're not getting united because alignment and reinforcement. If you say we are one, for example, you just have to act like we are one. You just have to look at the landscape and say, somebody is not feeling happy. Come bring it to the table, okay? If you say we are one, and you look at the landscape, and you see 2 or 3 people who are not happy on the table, and you leave them there, and you say, by the way, they don't count. They don't have the numbers. They're not numerically strong to torpedo us. Then you're not going to be united.
And so, if we're one, if you're truly one, would it then matter which position goes to?
You are putting the car before the horse. We want to be one. You have to make us one. You see, not just assume we are one. Nobody is one in the world. In the US today, there's not crisis over white nationalists and foreigners. You have always to create that oneness. And so any moment you don't create it, any moment you show division and show that some people don't count, you're no longer one. So I would say, if you're one, how can we be one? And I'm saying one way to be one. One, competence. Look around and get the best people. 2, take government away from discriminatory patronage. So we saw the president, outgoing president, put everybody who's service chief from one, seemingly almost from one place, okay? Now the question is, are they the only competent people in that? No. You have to deliberately cultivate competence across board. Over time, people now begin to see competence and not ethno-religious cleavages. But if you pack the bus with people from a particular geopolitics or identity, whether it's regional, whether it's, by the way,
even if they are competent,
women are talking about gender balance.
Right.
That's another issue. So if you pack all the men in the room and the women are out there, I tell them these are competent people. They say no, find competent women. So all over the world, inclusion, equity, DEI, not only for NGO work, it's for governance, diversity, equity, inclusion. So how do we become one? By deliberately showing that we are one, by including everybody.
And fairness has to be seen as well.
Transparent. And then give the big job. Don't give other people small job. Give them the heart of the job. And look, affirmative action. These guys have been out too long. Bring them to chief of staff. Bring them to secretary of government. You compensate those who are off to give them back a sense of belonging. It's strategic. So if we are 3 in this room and you're very angry, you feel you've not been given your due, it's our job to give you more than less. Now if you not say, oh, this guy has been outliner, he has not given us much vote, he doesn't count, by the way, 2 of us can win you with a majority. We have created a destabilizing.
So what you're saying, what you're suggesting is, so what they lose or what they lost in discount will give them back in volume. Or what they
exactly
lost
what I'm saying,
volume
that
will give
you
them
have
back
to
in
act
discount.
strategic to say,
Okay.
I need the weakest chain in this value chain. I need this hub that is the weakest. I need to strengthen it because we're as weak as the weakest link.
Thank you.
I have to be critically focused on marrying competence with a sense of social justice. That's
Thank
the
you.
criteria.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sam Amadi. We appreciate your presence on the show tonight.